bustling heart of the city, amidst the modern skyscrapers and neon lights, lives a couple whose life seems picture perfect to the outside world. The city, with its fast-paced lifestyle and constant hustle, is a place of opportunity, success, and ambition. In this urban jungle, we meet Lebo and Ayanda, a couple that is often admired by everyone around them for their apparent success. Lebo is a charismatic and ambitious man, always seen at the top of his game. He's the kind of guy who knows everyone, whose charming smile and easy confidence make him popular in the corporate world. To the public eye, he is the supportive husband, always by Ayanda's side, applauding her achievements and helping her balance work and home life. But behind his charming facade lies a different story. Lebo harbors a quiet resentment towards Ayanda's growing success. As her career takes off, so does his jealousy. While he smiles for the cameras, deep down, he feels overshadowed by his wife, whose fame and wealth are steadily outpacing his own. Ayanda, on the other hand, is a brilliant entrepreneur and a gifted herbalist. Her company, Earthskin Remedies, has quickly become a household name, offering natural healing products that have helped countless individuals recover and thrive. Her products, known for their powerful healing properties, are sought after in the city and beyond. Ayanda has worked tirelessly to build her empire, and her hard work has earned her respect, not only as a businesswoman, but also as a woman of wisdom and strength. She is the epitome of success, admired for her vision and her unwavering commitment to empowering others, especially women. Together, Ayanda and Lebo appear to be the ultimate power couple. They are celebrated for their hard work, their partnership, and the way they balance personal and professional life. The city looks up to them, thinking they have it all: love, success, and mutual respect. But behind the scenes, there's a growing tension. Lebo's feelings of inadequacy and envy are beginning to fester, and Ayanda's blind trust in him might just be her downfall. What the world sees as the perfect couple is actually a ticking time bomb, and soon, everything is about to change. Lebo had always been known as the confident, charming husband who stood by his wife, Ayanda, through thick and thin. In public, he smiled at her achievements and clapped the loudest at her success events. But behind the smile was a storm brewing quietly inside him. Every time someone praised Ayanda for her brilliant business mind, or for how Earthskin Remedies had changed their life, Lebo felt a sharp sting in his chest. The compliments that once made him proud now felt like reminders that he was becoming invisible in his own life. People saw Ayanda as the success story, the genius, the leader, and Lebo, he was simply her husband. As Ayanda's fame grew in the city, so did Lebo's sense of being left behind. He had dreams too, ambitions, but it was her name on the billboards, her face on the magazine covers, her voice on the radio interviews. He started questioning everything. Why was she the one everyone admired? Why did all the credit go to her? Wasn't he the one who encouraged her in the beginning? Didn't he help her sell her first few herbal creams? The more he thought about it, the more bitterness took root in his heart. What once was love now began to rot with jealousy. Lebo's thoughts became darker with each passing day. He didn't just want recognition anymore. He wanted control. He wanted to own the business that Ayanda had built from scratch. He convinced himself that he deserved it just as much as she did, maybe even more. In his eyes, she had stolen the spotlight for too long, and it was time he took it back. Slowly, this quiet jealousy began turning into a dangerous desire. He didn't just want to be part of the empire, he wanted to be the king of it. And for that to happen, Ayanda had to be pushed out of the picture. But Lebo was smart. He knew he couldn't just confront her or demand a share. That would raise eyebrows. Instead, he began to play a different game. He changed his approach. He became sweeter, more affectionate. He brought her breakfast in bed, offered to help with inventory, asked questions about the business with genuine interest. Or at least, that's how it seemed. Ayanda, overwhelmed by her growing responsibilities and non-stop schedule, welcomed the support with open arms. She was touched by this new version of her husband. The man who used to be distant now showed her attention, affection, and care. She thought they were reconnecting, She thought their love was getting stronger. Lebo knew exactly what he was doing. Every time he helped her file a document or review a contract, he was learning. Slowly, carefully, he was positioning himself to take over. He started offering to handle legal tasks and financial matters, claiming it was to take pressure off her. Ayanda, trusting and grateful, allowed him more access. She never suspected a thing. Why would she? He was her husband, her partner. She had no reason to doubt his intentions, but behind every kind gesture was a step closer to betrayal. Every meal he cooked, every form he filed, every smile he gave, it was all part of his plan. He was building a path to steal everything she had worked for. And the saddest part? Ayanda had no idea. She was falling deeper into the trap, thinking love was healing old wounds, when in truth, it was a mask hiding something much more poisonous. As Lebo continued to wear the mask of a supportive husband, his heart beat with the rhythm of greed. He didn't just want her money, he wanted her gone. He wanted the brand, the praise, the empire, without the woman who built it. And with each passing day, his plan moved one step closer to becoming reality. Lebo's plan was simple, but dangerous. He knew Ayanda's strength came from her independence, her drive, and her ability to run everything on her own. But he also knew she was human, tired, overwhelmed, and stretched thin by the pressure of a fast-growing business. So he decided to give her exactly what she needed: love, support, and a little peace. But it wasn't real love. It was a performance, a carefully rehearsed act with one goal: to win her trust completely and use it against her. He started small. He began helping out more around the house, doing dishes, folding laundry, taking care of things she usually had to juggle after long work days. He started waking up early to make her favorite breakfast: soft scrambled eggs with chili and fresh ginger tea. He made her laugh again, brought her flowers just because, and even drew warm baths for her after tiring days. Ayanda, who had been feeling burnt out, began to breathe a little easier. It felt like the old Lebo had returned, the one she fell in love with, the one who stood by her when she was mixing her first batches of Earthskin products in their small apartment kitchen. To Ayanda, it was healing. She thought their relationship was finally reaching a deeper, more mature stage. He started praising her more, saying things like, "You're the reason we've come so far," and "I'm so proud of you, Ayanda." She didn't realize that every word was carefully placed, like a chess move, leading to checkmate. With each compliment, Lebo was softening her guard. With each act of kindness, he was earning a little more access to her world. And then, when the timing felt just right, Lebo began offering to help with the business. At first, it was innocent, helping with emails, packing orders, arranging meetings. Ayanda welcomed it. After all, he was her husband, and she truly believed they were becoming a team again. Slowly, Lebo started asking about the back-end stuff: contracts, finances, supplier agreement. He said he just wanted to understand things better so he could help even more. Ayanda, tired from meetings and production deadlines, handed over access without a second thought. "Just take care of this for me, babe," she said one day, sliding her laptop across the table, and he smiled, knowing that moment was exactly what he had been waiting for. With Ayanda constantly traveling for expos, speaking engagements and product launches, she started leaving more business responsibilities in Lebo's hands. She thought she was leaning on a partner, but Lebo was quietly collecting keys to the kingdom. He studied her legal documents, memorized passwords, and watched closely how the business moved. He learned everything: who the investors were, how much money came in weekly, who approved payments, where the company was most vulnerable. Ayanda didn't see the red flags. She was too exhausted, too grateful to have someone finally lighten her load. She saw Lebo's help as a blessing, not the trap it really was. And the more she leaned on him, the more power he gained. Every bit of trust she gave him became another weapon he could use. And behind every loving smile, every back rub, every "I'm proud of you," was a man getting ready to steal it all. Lebo wasn't just pretending to love her. He was poisoning her peace day by day until she would have nothing left and he would have everything. While Ayanda was away in Ethiopia, Sharing her knowledge at an international conference on herbal healing, Lebo saw his perfect chance to strike. The mask of love he had worn so well for months finally came off behind closed doors. With Ayanda out of the country and trusting him fully, he wasted no time. He went straight into action, forging her signature on several critical business documents, contracts, ownership transfers, and bank papers, each one carefully altered to remove her name and replace it with his. In a matter of days, he made himself the legal owner of Earthskin Remedies. The company she had built with her own hands now belonged to him on paper. Lebo didn't stop there. He accessed their joint bank accounts and emptied every last coin, moving all the money into secret accounts under his name. These were funds Ayanda had saved from years of hard work, money she had planned to use for expansion, for charity projects, for creating opportunities for other women. Gone, all of it, stolen with a few clicks and forged signatures. The man she had trusted the most had become the one to strip her of everything she'd worked for. But Lebo knew that stealing her business wasn't enough. He wanted to erase her completely. He began preparing a divorce, one built on lies and deceit. He filed legal papers claiming that Ayanda was mentally unstable, attaching fake medical documents that painted her as someone suffering from spiritual madness. He whispered carefully crafted stories to people who once loved her. To the elders, he played the role of a heartbroken husband, trying to protect himself. He said Ayanda's success had come at a price. Her mind, that her obsession with herbs and ancient healing had taken her too far, and that she was no longer the woman they thought they knew. His manipulation worked. One by one, people began to doubt the woman they once celebrated. After all, she'd been so caught up in her work. She'd been traveling a lot. She talked to plants and believed in ancient rituals. Maybe, they thought, Lebo was right. Maybe she had lost her way. Ayanda returned home full of excitement, carrying new ideas, new formulas, and new hopes. But the moment she arrived, her world collapsed. Her key didn't work on the door of the home she shared with Lebo. Confused, she tried again, only to realize the locks had been changed. She knocked. No answer. She called him. No response. She rushed to her office, hoping for clarity, only to be met by unfamiliar faces, and her name missing from the business sign. Her assistant, now cold and distant, told her everything was under new management. Her bank cards didn't work. Her access was blocked. The business phone line, disconnected. Everything was gone. She stood frozen, her heart pounding, unable to believe what was happening. The man she had trusted, the man she had loved, had taken everything. Her name, her brand, her money, her home, snatched away like it was never hers. Humiliated and heartbroken, she wandered the city streets, trying to make sense of it all. People she'd once uplifted turned their backs on her, now believing she had lost her mind. Rumors followed her like shadows, whispers, pitying glances. Ayanda had given her love, her life, and her legacy to someone who, in the end, only saw her as a stepping stone. She was left with nothing, not even a place to sleep. And yet, deep inside that pain, something ancient and powerful was starting to wake. Ayanda sat alone on a cold park bench, her suitcase beside her, her hands shaking, and her heart shattered. The same streets where people once greeted her with smiles now felt distant and cruel. The silence around her screamed louder than any words. She kept replaying everything in her head. Lebo's soft lies, his sudden affection, how she had trusted him so blindly. It was like her soul had been ripped from her body. She couldn't understand how the man she loved, the man she built her life with, could do this to her. Every memory of him now felt like poison. The betrayal wasn't just about money or business. It was the breaking of something sacred. Love, trust, partnership. For days, Ayanda couldn't eat. She couldn't sleep. She barely spoke. Her phone kept buzzing with messages, not of support, but of gossip and blame. People whispered behind her back, called her crazy, said she had brought it on herself. Some even believed Lebo's lies about her being unstable, about her losing control because of her spiritual obsessions. The same community that once praised her now avoided her. The ones who once celebrated her wisdom now questioned her sanity. Doors that were once wide open were now slammed shut. She found shelter in a small abandoned room above an old herbal shop. The owner, a quiet older woman, didn't ask questions, just handed her the key with a soft nod. There, in the stillness of the night, Ayanda cried like she had never cried before. Her tears soaked into the thin pillow as her body curled up tight, trying to protect what was left of her. She wasn't just grieving the loss of her business or her home. She was mourning the death of her belief in love. She stopped looking in mirrors. She couldn't face herself. Her mind became a storm of questions. Was I not enough? Was it all a lie? How did I not see it coming? She looked back on the years she had poured into building Earthskin remedies, all the long nights, the sacrifices, the dreams she had once shared with Labo. Now it all felt like a cruel joke, a story where she was the fool and he was the winner. Her spirit, once so strong and full of light, began to dim. She no longer reached for her herbs or whispered her healing chants. The plants she loved so deeply stood dry in pots near the window. Even they seemed to grieve with her. Ayanda wrapped herself in silence. The world outside moved on, but inside her, time stood still. No one came to check on her. No one asked if she was okay. The betrayal was so public, so dramatic, and yet her pain was invisible. The cultural shame hit her like a wave. In a world where women are expected to stay silent, strong, and smiling, she now stood alone, labeled broken and forgotten. But in her solitude, something was slowly shifting, something deep within. It was faint, barely there, but real. A tiny flicker, like the first spark of fire in the darkness. A whisper, not from the world, but from within her soul. This is not how your story ends. One quiet morning, with her heart heavy and her spirit barely holding on, Ayanda walked aimlessly through the city. Her feet led her without direction, as if guided by something unseen, away from the noise, away from the eyes that once adored her, but now only watched in silence. She kept walking until the buildings gave way to trees, and the ground beneath her feet felt softer, older. It was then she realized where she had come, the edge of the city, where the sacred sycamore stood, hidden in a forgotten corner of Mwitu Nyoka. It was a place whispered about by elders, known for its deep connection to the spirits of the land. They said the tree had been standing for centuries, a silent witness to joy, pain, birth, and death. Ayanda approached it slowly, her hands brushing the bark, rough and warm like it was breathing. The air around it felt different, thicker, quieter, alive. She sat at its base, exhausted, letting her back rest against its trunk, and finally let out a deep, broken sigh. It was there, in that silence, that she heard the soft footsteps. Shida appeared as if from the tree itself, an elderly woman, her eyes covered with a faded cloth, her long grey hair braided with dried herbs. Though blind, her gaze felt as though it could see into Ayanda's very soul. She didn't ask questions. She simply sat beside her, humming a low tune that vibrated through the ground. Then she reached into a worn leather pouch and pulled out a small glass vial. Inside it was dark soil and tiny snake scales, glittering slightly in the sunlight. She placed the vial in Ayanda's hands and said, in a voice both soft and sharp, "When a man turns poison into power, the earth always returns his venom to his mouth." Ayanda stared at her, confused but curious. Shida continued, her words slow and firm. "You do not need to curse it. His hands already carry the weight of what he's done. You, child, must rise, not for revenge, but for rebirth." Something shifted inside Ayanda. It was as if Shida's words unlocked a door she didn't know existed. Her pain didn't disappear, but it moved. It began to settle into something deeper, something stronger. She realized that she didn't have to become like, she didn't need to destroy him. Life, nature, spirit, they would handle that in their own way. Her focus needed to be on herself, on her healing, on what she would become next. She stayed at the tree for hours, letting the ancient energy of the place wash over her. For the first time in weeks, her breathing slowed, her shoulders relaxed. She could feel her heartbeat sinking with the rustle of the leaves above her. It was as though the tree itself whispered back, "You are still here. You are not done." When Ayanda finally stood up, she wasn't the same woman who had arrived. She wasn't the broken figure who had been betrayed and abandoned. She was something new, something rising, And though she walked away from the sycamore with only a small vial in her, inside her, she carried something far more powerful: hope, wisdom, and the silent promise of a future that still belonged to her. Lebo had everything he thought he wanted. Ayanda's business under his name, the house, the money, the spotlight. For a while, he walked around with pride, believing he had finally stepped out from her shadow. But it didn't take long before the cracks began to show. The herbal products that once brought healing and trust to customers started going bad. Bottles leaked. Creams turned sour. Clients who once praised Earthskin remedies began returning the items, complaining of rashes, burns, and strange reactions. The name that had once brought comfort now brought fear, and Lebo, instead of owning up, blamed his workers and suppliers. But the truth was clearer than ever. Without Ayanda, the magic was gone. One morning, as he tried to prepare a new batch of oil, Lebo noticed something strange. His tongue felt heavy, swollen. Words came out wrong, twisted. He tried to chant the same herbal prayers Ayanda used to say, but the words wouldn't form. It was like his mouth refused to speak the language of healing. The more he tried, the more he failed. Customers stopped showing up. Old partners pulled out of deals. Distributors refused his calls. His once busy office became quiet, the shelves gathering dust. But it wasn't just business. At night, Lebo began to hear things. A soft voice, always behind him, whispering his name. He knew it was Ayanda's voice, even though she was nowhere near. Sometimes, he'd look into the mirror and swear he saw her face behind his, staring, silent, cold. He'd spin around, heart racing, but no one was there. The house grew colder. The lights flickered. Shadows stretched longer than they should. He barely slept. When he did, he dreamt of her, eyes full of pain, walking toward him slowly, whispering the words he once mocked. His health worsened. He lost weight, started limping, and his skin looked pale and dry. Doctors couldn't explain it. No tests showed anything serious, yet he felt like he was fading. What Lebo once stole with pride now became a burden he could no longer carry. The world he built on lies began to collapse, one silent, cursed day at a time. After stealing everything from Ayanda, Lebo thought he had finally won. He moved on quickly, starting a new relationship with Zuri, a young woman who admired his charm and success. At first, everything seemed perfect. The house was quiet, the business was still standing, and Zuri brought fresh energy into his life. But the silence soon turned into something else, something darker. Zuri began to hear soft whispers late at night, voices she couldn't understand, calling her name from corners of the room. Shadows moved across walls even when no one walked by. Doors creaked open by themselves. Lights flickered without warning. At first, she thought it was just her imagination, maybe stress. But then it got worse. One night, Zuri woke up screaming. Her body was covered in bruises, marks she couldn't explain. Her arms, legs, and even her back showed signs of being gripped tightly. But there was no one there. She hadn't fallen. She hadn't been touched. She started feeling afraid of the house, of Lebo, and most of all, of whatever energy filled the space they lived in. She tried to leave, but Lebo begged her to stay. He was falling apart too, but he couldn't admit it. Lebo's mental state began to crumble. He couldn't focus, couldn't work, couldn't even eat properly. Simple tasks like writing emails or answering calls became impossible. He kept hearing Ayanda's voice, soft but sharp, repeating the same words. You stole what was never yours. Her presence felt everywhere. Sometimes he saw her reflection in windows. Other times he'd catch the scent of her herbal oils lingering in the hallway. The fear began to consume him. His business, already on the edge, finally collapsed. Investors backed out. Suppliers cut ties. What little money he had left was used to keep the lights on. Eventually, even that wasn't enough. He was forced to sell off pieces of the company, his car, his home office, and finally the house itself. He moved into a small apartment, but even there, the hauntings followed. Lebo couldn't escape. Ayanda had never lifted a finger against him, but her power, her spirit, and the truth of what he had done clung to him like a shadow. He realized too late. What he destroyed out of greed would return to destroy him from the inside out. It all came crashing down on a day Lebo thought would mark his comeback. He had managed to organize a small public meeting, hoping to pitch a new idea and rebuild his shattered image. He wore his best suit, forced a confident smile, and stood before the crowd of business people and former partners. But just as he began to speak, something shifted. His voice cracked, his hands trembled, and suddenly in front of everyone he collapsed. Panic spread through the room. People rushed to help, and an ambulance arrived within minutes. At the hospital, doctors ran every possible test, but the results came back clean. No stroke, no heart attack, nothing they could explain. Physically, Lebo's body was alive, but he wasn't there anymore. His eyes were open, staring blankly at the ceiling. His mouth moved, but no words came. His hands twitched, but he couldn't hold anything. It was as if something invisible had frozen his soul in place, leaving only a silent, helpless shell behind. Word spread quickly. The man who once stood tall beside Ayanda, who was praised for charm and ambition, was now confined to a hospital bed, unable to blink with intention or whisper a single word. His new partner left, old friends disappeared, his home was sold, his money vanished with the same speed he had taken Ayanda's. People in the city began to talk. Some said it was stress, others believed it was justice from the universe. But those who truly knew the story, those who remembered Ayanda, her kindness, her healing, her strength, whispered that it was karma, a judgment that couldn't be avoided. Lebo had tried to steal light that wasn't his. He had betrayed a woman who loved him, crushed her dreams, and laughed while doing it. But fate watched, and now he was the one left powerless, voiceless, with nothing but time to remember every cruel step he took. He had gone from a man who controlled everything to a man who couldn't even control his breath. And in the city, whenever someone spoke of betrayal or greed, someone would always bring up Lebo's name, not as a hero, not as a businessman, but as a warning, a reminder that no matter how clever your lies are, the truth always finds its way back. After being betrayed and left with nothing, Ayanda found the strength to rise again. She did not let pain define her. Instead, she turned it into power. She opened the Mother Root Circle, a healing and empowerment center for women who had been hurt, abandoned, or broken. Here she taught herbal wisdom, emotional strength, and self-reliance. Her once stolen business, Earthskin Remedies, began to thrive again under her leadership. It became bigger and more respected than ever before, known not just for its healing products, but also for the strength of the woman behind them. Ayanda became more than a healer. She became a symbol of survival, power, and quiet justice. People admired her not only for her skills, but for the grace with which she rebuilt her life. When asked about Lebo, the man who took everything from her, she would only say, "He divorced me for my empire, but the earth divorced him from peace." Her words stayed with everyone who heard them. Ayanda's story lived on as a powerful lesson. Those who betray goodness and love will eventually face the consequences of their actions, and those who rise from the ashes, like Ayanda, inspire others to do the same.